So now we're going to spread out in this area, but we are getting a lot of activity right here. Let's shoot it, Mike. I will point out one spot that we need to be aware of in terms of our EMFs over here.
It's just consistently 69.
Sometimes it's unlocked. It is not today.
Oh, 70.
But behind it is their electrical eye, okay? So you're going to get some fluctuations here, but there is an electrical camera over here. Mine actually lights up.
Not that exciting. You're wrong.
So that's just something we need to be aware of. I really encourage people to take pictures and ask questions, and not just of me, but feel free to ask questions of the space and see if anyone feels like responding to that.
Is there a chair?
You know, these are all not except for the desk. The desk. Why is it leopard print? But really, what's more important than the desk in terms of that is actually all the woodwork. So the woodwork is really impressive. It was imported for the building of this from Imperial Russia. It was unheard of at the time. And this wood is a type of walnut that is now extinct. So there, you will never find this wood again. And it's the largest collection of this wood anywhere on the planet. And a lot of people think that memories and residual energies attach itself to wood very easily. And so the fact that it's an extinct wood, a lot of people feel inclined to touch it or ask questions about it without even knowing the history of it. So there's a lot of history.
Put your thingy thing up to it.
So Simon Benson was an intellectual haunt, or is an intellectual haunt, but we'll also talk about now potentially a more well-known haunt here at the Benson, and she is referred to as the Lady in Gray. Everyone's got a lady in something, right? There's the lady in white and the lady in blue. Well, we got the Lady in Gray because she's wearing gray.
That happened.
Is it like a gray dress?
Yeah, so
Gray
she's
pantsuit?
generally seen between the 7th and 12th floor. She walks into your room, she gives you turn down service, she leaves a chocolate on your pillow, and she walks out the far wall. Now in 1974, they removed a majority of the service entrances from their room to give privacy and expand rooms and all that stuff, so all the service doors were removed. In 1972, there was a young servicemaid by the name of Karen Johnson who passed away in a car accident on her way to work. And it is believed that she just kept right on coming. Now the best part about this is she's actually physically interacting with her space. She's just continuing about her business, doing her job, but she's physically touching things and leaving an actual chocolate. And the best part about that is the chocolates they leave today are those like gold dollars, like the fake dollars. When she's leaving or not, she's leaving a 70s wrapped Andes Mint. And people have actually called down to the concierge to complain that their chocolates were rancid.
Yeah, well, no wonder.
Right? So if you ever stayed here and you got a chocolate, maybe don't eat it. But, you know, it's pretty cool. So I'd love to see it. I've never seen it. But
No.
how are we feeling up here?
The bathroom smells like cigars.
Does it?
Yes.
The women's restroom? Should we head in
The
there?
women's restroom? Yes.
Let's head on in.
Well, I can.
I'll go to the men's restroom. I'll check it out. Make sure it's all safe.
I'll check it out.
Oh, she's right. She is absolutely right. The woman could have smoked a cigar and just went over.
It is a theory.
Well, we don't have smoking allowed anywhere inside buildings in Portland unless it's a certified cigar room.
It's not. I'm
It doesn't
assuming
smell
it's a
like it in there.
certified.
Do you smell it?
Yes.
I
it
definitely
smells
smell it.
strong.
Someone was lighting up in here. Is that allowed?
No.
Wait.
Did you just?
Ah! Wait. It's beeping.
No, I'm beeping.
Wait, mine. Oh, yours is beeping. Mine was lighting up though.
It was. Oh.
Oh.
Up and up?
Oh my god.
Here? Let's make sure. Let's go down to the ground and make sure. Okay, well, so it's holding solid pretty much the closer we get to the ground. So I'm going to guess there's probably electricity under our feet since it's really just holding at a yellow.
Okay.
But, well, we like to make sure that we're debunking when we can so we know when things are, you know, actual experiences. That's very crazy. It does smell like cigars.
fragrant.
Also, this bathroom is way
No smell
nicer
vision
than
here,
the guy's
but you
bathroom.
Women's
could
restrooms
smell
generally
it.
are.
Really? Aw.
They generally
Are nicer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what the men's looks like, but
It's not as nice as that.
not as nice.
There's no like sitting room or cigar smoking room.
So how are we feeling up here? Do we want to continue doing stuff up here? Are we ready to head out and see some more of Portland? Sure. All right.
Do we need our tools still? Or should
Oh
we get
yeah,
them
you
back?
get to keep them.
Oh.
The remainder of the tour is all you.
I still need my heat gun.
If you don't want it, I'm happy to hold that so you have it hand free if you want. And then I can give it back to you in the basement.
Yeah. Hand free seems good.
Yeah. So, is anyone familiar with Robert Goulet?
Oh yeah, totally.
I am not.
Goulet. That's my bad impression of Will Ferrell doing a bad impression of Robert. So yeah, just take a section, reflections.
Reflect on this.
Okay, go. Cool thing about that is every single time he came to Portland to perform, he stayed here in Benson, which is just a random weird fact about Goulet. But the bizarre fact is that every single time he came, he brought his pet cat because Benson's pet friendly, which is just a weird fact about this insanely opulent hotel. Any pet's totally welcome. So
Does cat have a cool name?
Oh no, I don't know. It's like a cat.
Whiskers.
My cat's name was Whiskers. I think that's a great name.
I think
So-
this too.
We got a bit of a hike to our next spot. We're gonna have to keep up, keep pace, cool.
Yes.
Here we go. Take it on time. Oh, we're keeping pace now.
Oh, we're like running?
I can't. No, we're here. So we're at the base of the 12-story Benson. Does anyone want to guess what happened here in the 1970s?
Someone committed suicide from jumping out a window.
Okay. Remember what we talked about in the restaurant.
It smelled like cigar.
So it's not fluctuating.
Oh, there
They
must be
installed air
electricity.
conditioning. Yeah.
Wow.
But if I don't point it out without fail, every single one of you are going to have an insanely high read. And you're going to go, oh man, something's... But there's actually electricity. Because it is believed that spirits and entities can manifest with the electricity that's around them.
It changed from yellow.
But it's going to fluctuate because it's not going to be consistent. So because it's not fluctuating and we can source it to the ground, we know pretty definitively that's what's going on. We're going to move because that smells great.
I'm still red.
You're probably going to get a pretty heavy read this entire block.
Lots of air conditioning.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm way more excited about that than I should be. The red section. I'm like, yes.
I like when you're like turning it and like go
I know,
up
mine
the
was like
bottom,
yellow, orange,
okay.
yellow, orange, yellow.
So we're going to talk about the U.S. Bank building, which is often referred to as the little brother to Big Pink, which is the U.S. Bank core building, which is the tallest building in our skyline.
Wow.
Portland City Girls on the 30th floor. Good happy hour for when you get there. So here at the U.S. Bank building, we're in 1956. 1956, a young woman teller was the last one on. She was just doing her job. A gentleman walked in for what she assumed was going to be some form of a transaction. She greeted him. He walked up to the counter. He pulled a knife and a gun on her, and he attempted to rob the bank.
With a knife and a gun?
With a knife and a gun.
The knife was necessary.
Like, how would you have
the
hands to like do it?
Right? Everything.
Let's do it.
But she actually
You have to
attempted
pick it
to
up.
stop him, which is not advisable in case you were wondering.
Yeah, probably
She
not.
lunged. She successfully got the gun from him. She shot him in the
That's why he
shoulder,
brought the knife.
Yeah.
but in doing so, she was stabbed in the neck.
How weird.
Now she
died.
fled.
Bad place to be stabbed.
She fled to the elevators that were directly behind the teller counters. Hopefully something's open. Not really, so we're going to have to try and sneak peeks through the curtains. Probably won't be able to see much of it. But she escaped to the elevators directly behind the teller counters, but she never made it off. She did pass away in elevator number 2 here at the U.S. Bank building. Now the reason I bring that up is I had never heard this story before ever in my life, but in 2006, I actually studied abroad in London and I had to come here to exchange my currency. Came here, parked in the parking garage around the corner, got in the elevator. Elevator door is shut, and I hit floor number 3. I know exactly where I'm going. It shot me up to roof access. The doors open and shut. Slammed me back down to the parking garage. They opened and wouldn't do anything else. I had to take the stairs. Ever since this incident in 1956, the elevators have not been properly working, regardless of what they do. They are out of order all the time. They've installed tons of wheelchair ramps and stairs around the building because they just can't rely on them. And it is believed that she's just still there, panicked, and doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to get off. So, if you can see it all through here, you see that lit up doorway?
Yes.
That's going to be the elevator alcove. Her tiller window would have been 3 windows over,
Okay.
and that's where she would have been. And she lost her life in elevator number 2. So,
Well, that's a crazy story.
it's crazy, and I had never heard it before. And when I heard about it, I was like, yep. Okay.
I'm sensitive.
Noted. Noted.
So are you busy now?
So, what we're going to look at now is this entire city block that's across from us. So this whole stretch from the Penny Diner all the way down to this. But also we'll note the Terminator and Darth Vader who are here to join us.
That's happening.
Zeta's on the next block. But in 1880s, 1890s Portland, this all would have been an open air stable. And this is pretty much our central transit system because we didn't have cars, so this was our TriMet right here. And horses, stables, all that good stuff. But why? Well, we're on Stark Street, and Stark Street was our main stretch of road at the time. It was our main thing. It's all we did. Stark Street had direct access to everything we needed. Most notably, though, it had direct access to the Willamette. The Willamette was right there, and also we didn't have bridges at the time. We were not Bridgetown yet. So the only way to get across the river was the Stark Street Ferry. It was our only public ferry at the time. And also, when you were building a metropolis or a city at the time, when you were settling, you didn't bury your dead where you were building your city. You buried your dead away from the population. So all of our dead and all of our pioneer cemeteries are actually on the east side, over there in East Portland, which was a different city at the time. But the only way to get them there was the Stark Street Ferry, right? So that was a really important note. And all the funeral homes and mortuaries around Portland would have to pay tons of money to get one of the stable guys to bring a carriage over, to pick up the bodies, to take them to the Stark Street Ferry, to get them across the river. It was a huge process. So all the funeral homes and mortuaries got pretty smart, and they all opened up right here on Stark Street. So this had an insanely dense population of our funeral homes and mortuaries, including Johnson & Sons Mortuary, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. The cool thing about that, though, is what goes along with stables and all that good stuff. Horses, farms, barns, if you've ever been there. Cats, right? Cats totally hang out in farms and barns. If you've ever been there, they're totally there, right?
Yes.
They're cute and great, but if you've ever been around a horse, you may know that large animals do not always care for cats. They tend to startle them, they snuggle their feet, and the horse is like, oh my god, what is going on? I cannot see anything. This is scaring me to death. So the stable boy got a bit of a wise idea. He decided, hey, we dock dogs' tails all the time. Why not dock a cat's tail so it doesn't tickle their belly? They can't wrap around their legs anymore. Oh, well, wait.
In New York.
Gotta stretch that. We can't, it won't tickle their belly. It'll be great. So he tied some string on a cat's tail. Tail fell off. He was like, this genius. Cat died. Not so genius.
Yeah.
Because cats' tails are not the same as dog tails, in case anyone was wondering. So don't do that. I'm a medical professional. But the reason I bring that up is at the Penny Diner and Hotel Lucia, there are reports of a tailless white cat that hangs out in the hotel lobby area. You can actually pet it, you can scratch it, it knocks things off counters, but the best bit of evidence we have on this actually came in the form of a 1-star Yelp review. And she was so angry because she's deathly allergic to cats. And she could have died. She could have had an allergic reaction. She could have been, it went on for 7 paragraphs about how livid she was. Now, this got flagged over 300 times in a 2-week period on Yelp. We first off, the fact that there was that much traffic on Hotel Lucia's website is insane.
Yeah.
But the fact that it got flagged, Yelp removed it. Hotel Lucia, us at Paranormal Walking Tours, we've all been like, hey, please put it back.
Yeah.
And their response to us was, why do you want a 1-star review put back up about your business? We're like, trust us, we want it back. Just do it. This has been going on for 18 months. It's not back yet. Hopefully it will be, but I personally think this lady's crazy because ghost cats are definitely the best, thing for allergies. They don't have dander. Like, if you have allergies, just get a ghost cat. It's a great idea. So when we originally started doing this tour 6 years ago, I would have actually talked about how we didn't have a sewer system. The streets would have been soaked in urine and other stuff because we were a really civilized bunch.
Yeah, we were.
But about 4 years ago, guests started noticing fluctuations on our EMFs, and we could not explain it. Nothing changed, nothing had happened, nothing was added, no electricity was put up,
Oh, I'm
nothing.
at red. I wasn't. I was, but now I'm not.
But on another one of our tour guides' tours, Todd, he had a young guy, probably a little
Todd.
older than you, early 20s, started sweating profusely. Profusely. And Todd was like, you okay, man? You good? He's like, I'm fine. Todd just assumed that he'd probably had a little too much to drink, which is safe to assume sometimes. He's like, okay, you're fine? Yeah, I'm great. Continues doing his thing. He's like, yeah, poop in the streets. Ha, ha, ha. And the guy throws up. And Todd's like, oh, he's really not okay. But then he's like, no, I'm fine. It's great. They continue They get about halfway through the street. He throws up one more time. The young man falls to the ground, grabs his chest and says, I've been stabbed. I've been stabbed. At this point, Todd's like, oh my gosh, you have not been stabbed. You are having a heart attack. Get you out of the street. Gets him out of the street with help from other people on his tour. Over here on the sidewalk. Restorative position if you do CPR, left arm up, left leg up, get the blood flowing, all that good stuff. He ends the tour, he apologizes, he calls an ambulance, he keeps stating, I've been stabbed. And Todd's like, it's okay, an ambulance is on the way, you're having a heart attack. Ambulance gets here, transports him to the hospital. Here's what I can tell you. Nothing was wrong with him. He had no evidence of a seizure, no evidence of a heart attack. There was zero trace of any form of alcohol or drug in his system, which is unheard of for a young 20-something in Portland. But what we found out is about a week and a half prior, which was when we started getting these fluctuations on our EMFs, a young man had stepped outside of Club Rouge for a cigarette break where he was mugged and stabbed and lost his life on that corner. No news outlet of any kind picked up on it. We found out that he was actually from out of town, and his family had requested that the stories not run because of where he was a patron that evening. So, in my opinion, this is probably the closest form of a possession I've ever come to. I'm very happy it did not happen on my tour, just saying. But you're feeling okay, right? I am CPR certified. But for me, it was really the essence of what a lot of hauntings can be. It's somebody's way of saying, hey, I mattered, I was important, this happened to me, my story needs to be told. And he understood, probably because he'd been watching us go past for a week and a half at that point. He's like, these people can help me tell my story. So fortunately we were able to. We found out who he was. We did not state that he had been inside Club Rouge. And we were able to give him a little bit of an obituary and make sure everyone understood that this had happened and that his life mattered. And nothing's happened since, knock on wood. But we still get the fluctuations because I still think there's a lot of energy there from him. Especially being a tourist and coming into a town and that happening to you, that's pretty tragic. So we are here in the mystery parking lot. Mystery parking lot is referred to because there are tons of mysteries attached to it. The first thing being, we're all noticing that we're having massive fluctuations on our EMFs,
Not
right?
you, but everyone else.
Well, I mean, they come and go though. And without fail, you will get reads here. Here's what I can tell you historically. Historically speaking, before Portland, before it was ever settled, we did have a very dense population of Native Americans living on the banks of the Willamette, okay? And based on their old maps and research, I can pretty definitively tell you that we are standing on what would have been a burial ground.
Makes sense.
For more evidence on that, any business that attempted to build here, 1880s, 1890s, you're from the area, pretty much everywhere you go has a basement, correct? Everywhere has a basement. Most houses have basements, buildings have, we just do basements here, it's kind of our thing.
Yep.
No business that built on this spot ever attempted to put a basement in. Interesting. Which was pretty much lost property for them. That was a whole extra story they could have had, but I think the reason they did it was pretty telling. Any business that did open up here had no success. Several of them actually caught fire and burned down. Boarding houses. In 2010, a young kid got a pretty clever idea. He mounted a webcam on the hut just to film it, just to see what was going on. He filmed it for about 3 weeks. Saw some crazy stuff. He would see bricks remove themselves from the wall, shadows with no origin, car lights would go on and off in sequence, alarms would go on and off in sequence, cars would appear to move, and generally speaking, this is the most packed this parking lot will ever be. And this is packed for this lot. Generally speaking, it's pretty vacant. The only car you're ever going to see here is the white van, which is the owner. So, walk this way. You're going to continue getting reads. This is a great opportunity to take photos as well. And we'll head over to the brick wall.
Mystery parking.
Seen it.
And there's no reason other than paranormal. There is nothing that can be explained by scientific standards to give us why we're getting these reads in this parking lot.
So wait, like sometimes a lot of stuff will happen on the wall?
Sometimes, I've actually had a tour where we heard a brick fall. We didn't see any bricks on the ground though, but we definitely heard the brick remove and fall. And we came over to look for it, and it definitely hit the pavement, like you could hear it, and it wasn't there. There was no brick on the ground. Now there's two, but yeah. So that was pretty cool.
There you go. That's pretty good.
So do any of us like horror movies?
Yeah.
Horror movies? 2 rules of horror movies, okay? First rule is listen to your soundtrack, right?
Yes.
Second rule is always follow the animals, right? Well, here at Portland Walking Tours, we don't allow pets on our tour, but we do allow service animals. Service animals is just the law. We had a guy show up with a super sweet chocolate lab service dog. She was so sweet, super well behaved, was fantastic in the Benson. She was just the greatest thing ever. We get here, she will not set foot on the parking lot. Literally, she actually physically pulls him off the lot and attempts to bite his hand, which was very clearly out of character for her. He had to walk her all the way around and meet us on this end of the parking lot. For me, I was just like, yeah, that's just more solid evidence for me that something's happening here. Animals are way more intuitive. They see and smell and hear things that we could never possibly imagine. And I've actually attempted to bring my dog here once as well. He was not having it. He was not happy, and he is an old guy. He is 12 years old. He is very well trained, and he had a little accident, and he could not control it. He's like, what is that? I'm like, I'm so sorry, Dexter. I'm so sorry. We're leaving. He was like, never again. And he just looked at me. He was so mad at me for like 2 days. So in terms of horror movies, I like to kind of dissipate the tension of talking about a burial ground with the. So they moved the headstones, but they didn't move the bodies, which is. Anybody? Poltergeist.
Haven't seen it.
Okay.
You haven't seen Poltergeist? That's okay. It's a classic. That's Craig T. Nelson's line. It's a big favorite of mine.
like
Parenthood.
scary movies.
Big fan of that. But the reason I bring it up is we're going to talk about poltergeists. And poltergeists are really important because there is a common belief as to what a poltergeist is. So what is a poltergeist? Anybody?
A spirit that typically picks on people, or is
That's absolutely the general common belief. Absolutely, you're totally right. However, paranormal investigators and specialists and paranormal community anymore believe that poltergeists actually have nothing to do with death or spirits. They actually believe it's more likely the maturing energy of young psychic women, and they're not aware of it yet. So a place that had tons and tons of reported poltergeist activity would have been the Zone, which was a 21 and under dance club open until 2011. It's this great place, open until 2009. It's this great place, thumpa thumpa, get your cranberry and Red Bull on, have a great night. A bunch of teenagers just pounding in there. So of course, there was going to be a ton of poltergeist activity if that's the belief. They would have light bulbs burst, mirrors would crack, windows would break, chairs would throw themselves. But I can attest to being born and raised in Portland and been to the Zone. Never once would I have told you it was a negative place to be. Super fun, super positive place to be. But I will now draw our attention to the black archway, which would have been its doorway. In January 2009, there was a big line of teenagers waiting outside to get in, having a great time, when a young gentleman approached the line, opened fire, and shot 9 teenagers. He also shot one of the co-owners of Kells in the shoulder. He then turned, walked away to where this pay to park sign is, and took his own life. His name was Eric Ayala. That night, 11 individuals were shot. 2 of the young girls lost their life. They were both 17 years old. After that, the Zone held a huge benefit where they raised money for the victims, but 11 days after the benefit, they closed their doors for good. They were open for 11 and a half years. 11 people were shot that night, and they were open 11 days after. For whatever reason now, 11 seems to be imprinted on it. And Venue 126, which attempted to be an 18 and over dance club, was only open for 10 and a half months. So right now it's trying to be a Pine Street Market. We'll see if they have better luck changing what the venue is. We're hoping. But so now we're here at the Hazelton building. There's a really lovely shot of the engraved name right up there. But what we're here to look at is this beautiful thing. The high water line. The high water mark was the Great Flood of 1894. We had standing water all the way up to 9th Avenue. However, down here, the Vanport flood, that was almost a more standard flood line for us, okay? We flooded all the time. Anymore, the Willamette and Columbia are the two most engineered rivers in the United States, but back then they were not. We would flood at least twice a year, and even if the water didn't make it to street level, the water would be in our
basements.
There it is, Niles.
I got you.
So that's going to be full circle once we go underground. We're going to talk a lot about that, okay? Yeah. So just keep it in your mind. So we're here at Kells. Kells was built 1889. It's the last cast iron building ever built here in Portland because Portland is in the Pacific Northwest and it rains a lot and it's a metal building and that's not smart. No. But they've done an amazing job keeping it up. Cast iron was really cool. It was like big kid Legos. You get a catalog, you'd say, I want that, that, and that. It would arrive, you go snap, snap, building. Whew, really cool. If you ever,
handy dandy.
It's super cool, but if you ever go to Kells, you should totally ask them to perform the Kells trick. Has anyone ever been to Kells? So Kells is super awesome. The Kells trick goes something like this. You'll ask your server, your bartender, the bouncer, anybody, and say, hey, I want to see the Kells trick. Okay, great. I need any kind of paper money you have. Okay, dollar bill, great, here it is. They hand it over and they roll it up and they throw it on the ceiling and it sticks. And there it is, and your money is on the ceiling and it's gonna stay there. Because what they're not telling you is cast iron buildings were all built with magnetized beams. So it's not a great place for your computer, but all of their employees carry teeny tiny little metal discs in their pocket that they wrap up in that dollar, so it will stick to the ceiling, but it's not a bad thing. Every St. Patrick's Day, the owners scrape down whatever's up there, they match whatever the amount is and donate to the children's hospitals around town. So this year it was over $13,000, so it's a very, very good thing. It doesn't get you out of tipping your bartender, but you're doing a good deed. So it was built in 1889. When it was built, it was not an Irish pub. Weird fact. It was actually built as a boarding house. And just to give you some numbers on that, in the 1890 census, 60% of our population claimed to live in a boarding house. So 60% of our population at the time was in temporary housing. That's an insane number, but it makes sense. We were sailors. That's what we did. So in 1891, a fire broke out. The fire brigade responded. First on the scene was a fireman by the name of David Campbell. He went in and successfully got every single resident out, which is the first time it's ever happened in Portland history where every single resident was rescued successfully, until one of the residents stated, my friend is still inside. David Campbell went back in to retrieve the friend. Fortunately, he had already made it out. Unfortunately, David Campbell did not. He did become the first fireman to pass away on duty here in the city of Portland, and he passed away in what is now the cigar room. There are reports of people who have stated seeing individuals run out of the bathroom down there as quickly as possible, not quite done with what they were doing, because they've heard someone pounding on the door screaming, fire, get out. I think it is 100% possible that David Campbell is still in there attempting to get everyone out safely. I also think it is very possible that your drunk friends are mean. Stating this as a fact, my sisters are mean. Whenever someone says fire, you run. Just a note. We're going to be moving into the nightclub district. Because it is Saturday, it's probably going to get a little noisy, but I'll try and do my best. We may just walk through this part and then meet at the end, or like talk at the end. It's amazing.
Yeah.
impressive shot. But it's beautiful. They're doing some restoration at Erickson's 9-bar saloon, which is what we're going to talk about next. All right. Big black sheeting stuff, yay! But this was Erickson's 9-bar saloon. Erickson's 9-bar saloon was the Pacific Northwest's largest saloon in history, okay? Took up an entire city block. There was an entrance here on 2nd and Burnside, and then went all the way over on 3rd and Cooch. So this whole first floor, yes, it's Cooch, it's not couch, I know, I'm sorry. Gotta giggle at it. First story right here would have been all bar. The second story over here would have been a bar. This would have been gambling, and the 3rd floor would have been a hotel. If you were a wary sailor, you could come here and get super wasted and then crash somewhere. This is absolutely where you're going to show up. It was an all-inclusive resort, basically, for these sailors.
Nice.
So if you were super tired, if you were in town for a little while, you could totally rent a room for a week. If you're only in town overnight, you could just rent it for the night. Or if you wanted a little nap, you could rent it by the hour. And if during that nap you realized, oh, there is a hole in my pants, oh, darn it, you just head on down to the bartender and you'd say, hey, I need my pants mended. And he'd say, you need a seamstress. Absolutely.
I was wondering when the women would come in.
Fantastic, yes. Because at the time, as I mentioned, as long as you were paying your taxes in Portland,
They didn't really care.
they didn't care. So we had instated the seamstress tax.
Nice.
You did not need a lot to prove you were a seamstress. You needed a needle and thread, and that was it. I'm a seamstress. What are you going to do about it? Fantastic. Because if you walked into a saloon of any kind and you asked for a...
Seamstress.
Well, what is a seamstress?
Prostitute.
Get off of my tour, you're immoral and improper, and oh my gosh, you're thrown out. You would have been literally thrown out. You could have even been arrested for saying that, for walking in a... You could have also been arrested for whistling, because it was considered improper as well. Woohoo! But, so these seamstresses, they operated out of the hotel, which is really what it was used for, not so much sleeping here for a week. But the cool thing about Erickson's, other than all of that, is they were actually the very first saloon to allow female patrons. The first saloon in history to allow female patrons. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's a great moment in feminist history. Sort of. A little bit.
Counteract that with the seamstresses.
Here's the thing, though. Just in terms of all of that, remember, for every 14 men, there was one woman.
One woman.
So Erickson was like, if we let women drink here, we're going to get all the business. So every single sailor knew there could potentially be chicks drinking in this joint. They're totally going to show up. Now, fortunately for the women, their bar was actually upstairs. It would have been called the Dainty Ladies Saloon, and would have been separated from the rest of the facility by electrified chicken wire.
Wow.
Yes.
So if you went in, you could not actually get with a woman.
Well,
while she was in the Dainty
exactly.
Ladies room.
It was just basically more for entertainment. And the other thing about that was where we see Spice Gentlemen's Club here on the corner. That would have originally been Erickson's burlesque show. Now, if you were one of those rough and tumble 1 to 14 women making your way here in Portland, do you think he wants you in his burlesque show? Probably not. He wants the dainty ladies of the world. So he sort of used it as a recruiting method, which, genius business move, not great in feminist history.
No.
Like, let's just set the record straight on that one.
Yeah.
But in terms of that, Erickson's did a lot of cool things. It was referred to as the 9-bar saloon because it did have 9 bars inside. But the other thing it did, it was the very first bar to give you a footrest. So that brass railing that runs underneath most bars, they were the very first saloon to do it.
Oh.
Now theirs was more utilitarian in that it was actually a pipe and it had liquid flowing through it. Because underneath their bar tops, it was not wood. It was actually porcelain. Because they were all open trough urinals.
Nice.
Belly up, unzip, never lose your stool. Great thing.
At the bar.
Yes, you could literally.
Just get in there.
Literally, you would just in and out, one go. It was disgusting.
So how was the Dainty Ladies room?
I would assume not, as the Dainty Ladies had table service. Okay, so where are we? Why are we here? Why does it matter? Why do we care, right? Here we are. We are in what used to be the Merchant Hotel, okay? The Merchant. The Merchant Hotel catered to merchants and sailors. Yeah, well, we'll get into that too. So has anyone ever been inside Old Town Pizza?
We have pizza there.
Yeah, so Old Town Pizza next door, they actually are the original lobby area for the Merchant Hotel, and where you order your pizza is the original lobby desk, okay? Which is super cool, and the bar is the original bar. Where we're standing probably would have been tables. There would have been a secondary 12-foot bar that ran this way. It wasn't a super classy place because they were catering to merchants and sailors, right? So next to the hotel lobby desk would have been a sign that read, "Please refrain from smoking opium in the hotel lobbies. Accommodations have been provided in our basement." So we are heading into the opium dens of the Merchant Hotel. Watch your heads, it's super dark. We do have the electricity turned off down there so we can hopefully get good reads. We're going to meet down there, we're going to talk, and then we're going to do some hunting around, all right?
Sweet.
Here we go.
Very excited. Oh no, he's coming in.
No, he's just making sure I locked it.
Oh. Oh no.
Use the handrail if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
We are dead.
Low beam right here for me, 12.
Not me.
Not too bad at all.
Oh, I don't like these.
Okay. Now this is also another choice. We can also get rid of the lanterns. I don't know if they're ruining anything.
No, they're good.
No? Okay, cool.
No.
Okay, here we are. We're in the basement. I used to do my tour a little bit differently. But anymore what I do is I like to start off right off the bat with potentially who we're here to hang out with, hopefully, who we're here to see. Have you read anything about the Merchant Hotel or any of the history of it yet?
No, really lame.
A little bit? Okay, so I am going to tell you the story of our resident spirit. Her name would have been Nina, as she is referred to, but I'm going to tell you her story, and then I'm going to tell you why I do not believe her name was Nina. So here at the Merchant Hotel, they were catering to merchants and sailors, as I stated, which meant they were also supplying them with entertainment. More specifically with seamstresses. And as I said, exactly. And as I said, as long as you paid your taxes, cops didn't care. Guess what? They were not paying their taxes and cops were super mad, okay? So the cops decided they wanted to do a raid, but in order to do so properly, they needed an informant on the inside. They contacted one of the young seamstresses. They told her, "We'll find your family, we will take you home, we know you are not here by choice." Seems like a pretty good deal, right?
Yeah,
She totally agreed. She got them the names, she got them the books, they did a huge raid. They arrested over 40 people here at the Merchant Hotel, but Nina was nowhere to be found. They assumed she had fled, which was a pretty safe assumption given the circumstances. However, 3 days after the raid, they found an unidentified young woman's body in the elevator shaft here at the Merchant Hotel. And next to her body was a brick with the name Nina, or Nina, which was a popular name at the time inscribed into it. Here is why I, 100%, do not believe her name was Nina. If you fall down an elevator shaft, odds are you are not going to survive, which clearly she did not. And even if you did survive, even for a little bit of time, you gonna go to the tour?
Oh.
Remember Stomp Stomp?
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you. There it is. Debunking. There it is. Okay. And even if you did survive, is your first instinct going to be, "Oh, I'd better scratch my name into a brick"?
into a brick. I thought that too.
Probably not. Here's what I can tell you. At one point in time when they originally built the hotel, that was likely a stairwell. And I do think there was probably a young seamstress by the name of Nina who went, "Nina was here, sweet deal, see you later," and it remained when they put the elevator in. I believe that Nina is in fact a young woman by the name of Mary Ann White. There was a seamstress here on the census by the name of Mary Ann White who was not arrested during the raid, and there's no record of her following the raid. And it's very important to note her last name because it would not have been her given last name. Many seamstresses utilize the last names White, Brown, and Smith, so there's really no way to trace her beyond that. But I believe that Nina is in fact Mary Ann. So, and that's hopefully who we're here to have some contact with. So we will move this way now. Keep that in the back here, Nani.
I almost don't even have to die.
So in terms of telling the story of Nina, I've had some occurrences on a tour that I like to point out, which is actually, we do private tours, and we do a lot of bachelorette parties. Why not?
Really weird.
Super great idea before your wedding, right?
Yeah.
And whenever they show up for their tour, for a bachelorette party, I promise you, they are going to be inebriated, and they are going to be wearing high heels. And mind you, this is a walking tour. So whenever that happens, I come down here first. I'm like, I don't know how long they're going to make it outside. We're not sure what's happening. We may just be down here the whole time, keeping contained. You know, we're herding cats. And they were super trashed, and I had this one bachelorette party, and they were not listening to a word I said. And they're just like, oh my gosh, you're so scared. And they're just taking selfies and not listening to anything. And I'm just trying to be like, hey, we're going to talk about the history and what's happening and who we're here to see. And the drunkest of them all was the maid of honor. And her name was Kelly, and I remember her name was Kelly because it's my cat's name. And she's just like super trash. She's like, I'm the maid of honor, and it's so great. And she stopped. And she walked away. She wants to know why you're back again. She wants to know why you keep calling her Nina. What's going on? What happened? Everyone else sobered up real fast. She had no recollection of the incident. But for me, that just solidifies even more that the research I have done is that Nina is not Nina. And that's my opinion, and that's the research I've done. But I like to offer that up because it just solidified for me what I've done in my job. So where we're going to move now is over here. So here in Portland, when we were building our city, we had this fantastic dual-level dock system because our rivers flooded all the time, okay? But because they flooded, remember when we were at the Hazeltine building, I noted that water would have been in our basements when they flooded. So that was very costly and very damaging to constantly have water in our basements. So what we did was we interconnected all of our basements together with a tunnel system because as the waters naturally flowed in, you could open them all back up, back out to the river, and the waters would naturally flow back out. So we had this really great interconnected underground tunnel system for flooding, which also meant we had a really great interconnected underground tunnel system for other very illicit activities. Primarily prohibition, occasionally human trafficking. But a lot of people refer to them as something that maybe we've read about, which is the Shanghai Tunnels. But I use air quotes when I say that.
Okay.
The Shanghai Tunnels, okay? Super cool, but I want to take away that term Shanghai from your vocabulary right now because we're going to talk about crimps. Okay? So what is Shanghaiing?
Place?
Oh, no, okay, yes, Shanghai is a place. So does anyone know what Shanghaiing is?
Oh, I do
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
When you take somebody and you
Yes.
essentially trick them into going with you somewhere and stealing them.
Absolutely. Basically, kidnapping.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. So we're going to replace the term Shanghaiing, though, with the term crimping, because that's what a crimp did. A crimp was responsible for staffing ships. That was their job, by any means necessary. But when it wasn't shipping season, mind you, they still needed to make their money, correct? So what were they good at?
Stealing people.
Stealing people. So we're going to move into this area. Watch your feet. It's a little uneven. Want to follow me? Watch your step, though. It's a little uneven. Hello? I'm gonna leave that right there. We don't get reeds in here generally, so I'm going to see if that continues to be so. So crimps were good at kidnapping, basically. And when it wasn't shipping season, they still needed to make a living. So what crimps did was they crimped young women. And if you were a sailor, it didn't really matter if you hit them over the head, broke a leg, did whatever you needed to do to get them to the ship. But with a young woman, to become a seamstress, you did not want to damage the goods. So you had to use much more subversive methods. So this would have been a storage area where the crimp stored his young women to break them into the industry. This is likely where Nina or Marianne would have been kept. And, it's very strange to me that we're actually even getting a 2-point read there, and that's because we never...
We've got like a 3.
Where's it? We're
Point.
at 3 over here.
I mean, oof.
So...
It's like, oh, it's not that.
Generally speaking, young women wouldn't be in here for too long because if your options were either die of starvation or live a full life and just do something you maybe don't kind of want to do, generally they were down here no more than a week. They sometimes less than a day if they thought there was a chance. So it was really unfortunate, but that would have been what happened in here. I don't like being in here. I think it's a pretty heavy area. So you're welcome to move in. It is pretty unstable, but I've never had anyone trip yet. Knock on plywood.
What? Oh, I thought that was like blood. It's just chicken package.
How is there a chicken package?
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's totally what it is.
Well, things appear in here, and you're just kind of like, how did that even happen? I'm gonna head out here. Don't like the creaky business. This wood is obviously not original, but when we acquired the space, they were already here, and it kind of gives good separation, and it kind of dampens some sound as well. So we left them. Oh, yeah, I have sound. So we are going to move this way all the way down to the other end.
Sorry, Christian.
It's like that. I like to leave my little guy right here just to see if anything wants to happen while I talk. So we were just kind of talking about Shanghai, or now we know crimping, right? Mm-hmm. So in terms of crimping, have you ever heard of the trapdoor trick?
No.
Okay, so the trapdoor trick would go something like this. You've walked into my bar, I think you can totally handle yourself on a ship, or I could at least get some money for you. So I'm like, hey, you, I got a shot of whiskey for you right here. Just come get it for free, not a big deal right here, don't even worry about it.
Totally. I love
Yeah.
whiskey.
Uh-oh. Trapdoor, you fell into my basement.
Oh, man.
And that whiskey you just shot totally has opium in it.
No. I hate when that happens.
And now you're here. So a crimp never wanted to be without product to sell. They always wanted to be able to make sure they could sell off to a captain if a captain was coming in. And so they are coming down. Okay, anyway. So they always wanted to make sure they had product to sell as a crimp. At any given time, just in this basement, there could be 10, 20, 30 men stored. And this would have been dug out a little bit deeper, because the first question I get asked, whenever that is the case, is if there's 30 men in your basement, why aren't they fighting back, right? It's a good question to ask. Well, because they were all doped up on opium, which is why, for a lot of the time, this was called the opium dens. It's not just because you could freely come down and smoke opium, which you could, but that just kind of made it easier for the crimp to snag you. It was called the opium dens because anyone that was stored down here was doped up on opium. Another thing to note is that, remember the reason we had this interconnected tunnel system was because, is your cell phone in your pocket?
Huh?
Oh, it must be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no.
I just like to, that's the first question I always ask just in case. We had the tunnel system because of flooding. So at any given time, dug out about 7 feet deeper, there was generally standing water. Many of the men that were trapped in the basements never made it out. They often died of exposure, hypothermia, and occasionally when we had situations like flash flooding, such as the Vanport floods, but back originally, they would have actually drowned in our basements. And crimps did not care, because you didn't want to deal with getting 30 doped up men out of your basement. Better let them die, not even a big deal. Frequently, they'd actually bury them in basements underneath the dirt, and it wouldn't even be a big deal, which is why they dug them out, because then you could just put a layer down, not even worry about it. So that's just this area, and that's just this basement. But that happened in pretty much every hotel, boarding house of any kind. So
It smells terrible.
it does?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to scare them. I don't want to startle anybody. Okay. We'll stay right here because we don't want to startle them right now. So this slab would have been put down in the 1940s. Probably, obviously, it's been patched up and fixed and everything. But when they started paving basements, many of the basements they found remains of young men all around Portland. Sometimes upwards of 20 different individuals, give or take. There's no report on what would have been found in this basement, but if it's like all the others, there are likely remains under us right now. So, you okay?
That's just gross. I mean, not gross, but like, guilty.
That's just gross.
Oh,
So I'm gonna attempt to not start again.